Hey everybody, it is your travel agent David, and today I'm going to talk about the most exciting travel topic in the world, quite possibly the universe. Okay, travel insurance. Now, if you're like me, insurance is kind of boring. So I'm going to try and do my best to throw some stories in there and use some exaggerated hand movements to keep you awake while we talk about something that's important. Now, there's dozens and dozens of travel insurance carriers out there. The one I prefer to use is called Allianz. Now, I'm not being paid or supported by Allianz for this podcast. I've just used them a couple times and I've not had issues with them. So I'm going to give you some examples of what happened with them and then some examples I've seen from my travels where people didn't have travel insurance and it kind of bit them. So my first introduction to Allianz was during COVID. In 2019, we had decided to do a family trip to Europe, and then COVID happened. So we tried to rebook it to a tour in Hawaii. Well, then the tour operator decided that they couldn't handle the COVID vaccine, or not COVID vaccine, but the COVID test at every island because it was a multi-island stop. So they canceled that excursion or tour. So we basically punted to Cancun and did a resort there for a week. But what happened was for our trip to Europe, we fortunately opted to get the travel insurance. Our travel agent mentioned, "Hey, you might want to get this just in case," and I did, and we were able to get our money back within like a couple of weeks because the tour operator canceled everything in Europe, and then we did it again for Hawaii, and then when they canceled it, we were able to get our money back for that. And so we've been able to use it personally and get our money back for some travel being canceled outside of our parameters. And they could have said, well, COVID's not a covered thing, but they didn't. A lot of people use COVID as a scapegoat to not have to pay, and Allianz stepped up. So that automatically built a level of trust with me for that. Now, let's fast forward a few years. Just recently, my mom booked a cruise, and I advised her to get travel insurance because now that I'm a travel agent or advisor, I always recommend that they get travel insurance, whoever my clients are. Well, due to some unforeseen issues that came up, my mom's unable to go on that trip. And because we had travel insurance, we submitted the doctor's paperwork, a letter, and a couple other little things. And in less than 30 days, my mom had a check for the covered amount to be applied for her expenses, which is phenomenal. Like there was no real issues. Allianz reached out to me to confirm a couple of things from the travel agent side, and bada bing, bada boom, money was deposited into my mom's account. So twice personally, I've used it, and I've not had any issues. Now, what I did is when I go on cruises, I used to book Allianz travel insurance for every cruise. But I found out, and then when we went to Europe and Australia and South America, but then I found out that Allianz actually offers annual travel insurance. And it worked out to be about the same cost as two trips. So if you're going to travel more than twice a year, I'd really look into Allianz for their annual insurance because you probably save some money. But why do you need insurance? I have healthcare insurance. Well, let me use this as an example. We were on a Royal Caribbean cruise. A young boy had a ruptured appendix. Military family, mom, the young boy, dad, and one or two more siblings. I think it was two other siblings. So military families, so they have military insurance, which is kind of like the most sought after because they know that they're going to get paid, the hospitals. Well, in Mexico and pretty much everywhere else, they don't really accept TRICARE. A lot of them don't even accept any kind of U.S. health insurance. The cruise lines don't accept insurance. So they bill you to your account and you have to use a credit card to pay for their services. So what happens is, in this case, if you had Allianz, you'd have to pay for it and you get reimbursed, right? So this family that was on the cruise, they came on with birth certificates because you don't need to have passports because it started and stopped in America. Well, the mom and the child had to get off the ship. Son went into the hospital. They somehow had to. They were set up before the ship, the cruise ended. There was already a GoFundMe page set up because they were trying to figure out how they were going to get paid because Mexico, they wanted money, not insurance. So another instance, there was a cruise we went on and we stopped off in, can't remember where one of the stops was, but a person on the ship had a heart attack. So the ship's hospital took care of stuff, and then they had an ambulance waiting. Took him onto the ambulance and took him into uh, the city to get better health care. They got billed by the ship and by the city. They wanted cash, right? So on the ship they used a credit card. I don't know what ended up happening in the Caribbean. I want to say it was the Bahamas. Uh, Then another time, there was a person that got hurt on the ship. They cut their foot and they needed stitches. So he went to the hospital in Mexico and found out. But the hospital in Mexico, they wanted like 10 grand for some reason in cash, liquid, before they'd even treat him. So when you have this travel insurance, it can help reimburse you for those costs. You're still going to need to have cash, access to credit cards, whatever. Some people will phone a friend, right, to be able to cover that. But you'll be able to get reimbursed it with the travel insurance. And travel insurance, if your bags get lost, if they're delayed, if you have a travel delay, you got a dental emergency, a medical emergency, if you have to be medevaced off of a ship to a different facility from a different place to be flown medevaced back to the States, all that. Like Allianz, their cover up to $1 million on some of their policies for that, but it's all reimbursable. Okay, let's look at different things. Okay, we had somebody that was going to go on a cruise. They ended up not getting the travel insurance because they wanted to keep everything as low cost as possible, which is understandable. Things are expensive. Then he got diagnosed with a medical issue before the cruise, and they had to cancel the cruise because the doctor's like, you don't need to be cruising with that. Well, they reached out to me and said, hey, this is what is going on. I need to cancel my cruise. Can I get any of my money back? I already knew the answer, but I called the cruise line and explained what was going on. And they were already past the refund window, so they weren't going to get a refund. And because this was like a week or two before the cruise, and I had to let the person know that they're not going to get any money back because they didn't opt to spend the $200 or whatever. It was like $100 something dollars for the cruise to protect the cruise. So they ended up losing a little over $1,000. So insurance is always a scam until you need it. That's my thought on it. But after seeing and traveling so much, I've been to almost 50 countries in the past 2 years, and I've been on, I don't know, almost a dozen cruises. I've seen a lot of stuff happening, and I'm not getting any younger, so I always pay for the insurance. Now, Allianz has all kinds of different insurance. They have one-time trip insurance. They have all trip, which is an annual or multi-trip insurance. They even have one trip rental car protection. They have one trip, single trip, basic and premier. They have one trip emergency medical for a single trip. They have one trip cancellation plus. That's their most economical plan. It's ideal for domestic travelers who want cancellation and trip interruption benefits but don't need post departure benefits. They have all trip basic, which is another annual slash multi trip. They have all trips prime, which is the same thing, just different coverage. And then they have annual multi trip, all trip premier. And that provides an entire year of worldwide travel protection and concierge service. One plan can cover you and your household. So that's what I got for my wife and I for when we travel. So it's not a sexy, fun, exciting topic, but it's an important one. It could literally be the difference between financial security and financial devastation. I've been blessed to not have had any issues on a cruise ship, but if I had a heart attack on the cruise ship, I can only imagine what the cost for that would be. And then if it was while we were traveling and I had to be medevaced off of a plane, off of the ship by helicopter, that's probably at least $100,000 bill right there. And if I needed to be aero medevac, to say that happened on my way to Bermuda, and I need to be medevac from Bermuda to Miami, that's probably going to be another $50,000 or $60,000 on top of medical bills. Um, that because I've got travel insurance, I'll have to front it somehow, but I can get reimbursed it on the back end, which just helps protect my financial stability for my family and I. So I would encourage you, the next time that you want to travel and you don't want to pay for travel insurance, maybe you think about this video. I know that one family wasn't expecting their young son, I think he was like 7 or 8 years old, to have his appendix burst. Another person, they know they weren't expecting their foot to be sliced pretty much from front to back on coral. I know the other person wasn't expecting to have a heart attack on there. You just never know what's going to happen in life. And just because you're on vacation doesn't protect you from Murphy happening. So if you have any questions about travel insurance, let me know. I'll do my best to answer them for you. But I do, and I'm not getting paid by Allianz at all. They took care of my family twice now. So I can speak on them personally, but Allianz Travel is who I use and who I'll always use for my travel insurance needs. Until next time, I'll see you next trip.